The first thing that set off alarms wasn't lipstick on a collar or some flirty text lighting up her phone. It was a flight confirmation. I was sitting at the kitchen island on a Tuesday night, half watching highlights on my phone while reheating leftovers. Maya's tablet was on the counter, face up, charging. We'd always had an open device kind of marriage. Or at least that's what I believed. The screen lit up with a soft ping. I glanced over without thinking. Flight confirmation, Seattle. Work-related trip. Paid. Seattle. That word lodged itself in my chest. Maya hadn't mentioned Seattle. No upcoming conference. No client meetings. No quick turnaround strategy session. Nothing. And she normally narrated her career moves like press releases. Promotions. Pitches. Panels. Every milestone got airtime. But this? Silence. I didn't touch the tablet at first. I just stared at it from where I sat. The preview showed her full legal name. Departure Friday morning. Return Sunday night. Booked in her professional capacity. Paid. From our shared account. The phrase work-related sat there like a shield. Work-related. It sounded so official. So clean. Almost like it was daring me to question it. I felt that familiar internal debate start up. The one where I ask myself if I'm being unreasonable. If I'm reading too much into something small. If I'm becoming the guy who looks for problems. I told myself, it's probably legitimate. She'll mention it tonight. She didn't. We ate dinner across from each other. She talked about a presentation she'd nailed that afternoon. I listened, nodded, asked follow-ups. The Seattle trip never came up. Not once. After we cleared the dishes, she went upstairs to shower. I stood alone in the kitchen, staring at the quiet tablet. I didn't unlock it. I didn't scroll. I just stood there, trying to decide if bringing it up made me insecure. Or just married. When she came back down 20 minutes later, hair damp, wrapped in one of my old college hoodies, I kept my tone neutral. "Hey," I said casually. "You heading to Seattle soon?" She paused mid-step. It wasn't dramatic. If you weren't paying attention, you'd miss it. But I was paying attention. "What?" she asked lightly. "I saw a flight confirmation pop up earlier. Said Seattle. Work trip?" Her face changed. Not confusion. Calculation. Then irritation. "You went through my tablet?" she asked, voice already sharpening. "I didn't," I said quickly. "It popped up on the screen. I just happened to see it." "That's still invasive, Andrew." Invasive. The word hit harder than it should have. "I wasn't snooping," I said. "I just didn't know you had a trip coming up." She walked past me to the fridge, opened it, shut it again without taking anything. "I don't run every detail of my career by you. That's not what I meant." "Oh, I know what you meant." She crossed her arms. "You're spiraling again." Spiraling. That word had become a pattern. Anytime I asked something she didn't like, I was spiraling, or projecting, or being insecure. "I just wanted to understand," I said carefully. "It came out of our joint account. It's reimbursable," she snapped. "God, not everything is a conspiracy." "I didn't say it was. But you implied it." She shook her head like I was exhausting. "You always do this. You take something normal and turn it into drama." Normal. A cross-country flight I'd never heard about. "You could have just mentioned it," I said quietly. She let out a short laugh. "See? Control." I blinked. "Control." "Yes, control. You hate when I move without your approval." "I don't need approval," I said. "I just thought, as your husband." She stepped closer, her voice dropping into that calm, cutting register she used when she wanted to win. "You need therapy, Andrew. Not updates about my calendar." That silenced me, because now it wasn't about Seattle. Now it was about my mental state. "You really think that?" I asked. "I think you've been paranoid for years," she said. "You just hide it under concern." Years. That word did something to me, because as she said it, memories started lining up like dominoes. The sudden business trips that always popped up with short notice. The exhaustion she'd blame on travel burnout. The way she started mocking my job at dinners. calling it stable but small. The eye rolls when I asked basic logistical questions. The jokes about how I'd never survive in her industry. The slow transformation of our marriage into a one-way support system. Me backing her ambition, rearranging my schedule, covering expenses when reimbursements were delayed. And somewhere along the way, my questions had become offenses. My concern had become insecurity. My presence had become pressure. "I'm not trying to control you," I said finally. "But you are," she replied instantly. "Even now, you're interrogating me." I asked one question, and you won't let it go. I felt the trap closing. If I pushed, I'd confirm her narrative. If I backed down, I'd confirm it too. "You're right," I said quietly. "It's probably nothing." She exhaled like she'd won something. "Thank you." Then she grabbed her phone and walked upstairs, muttering about how exhausting it was to live under constant suspicion. Constant suspicion. The house went quiet after that. I sat at the kitchen island long after the lights upstairs clicked off. And that's when something uncomfortable happened. Instead of replaying the argument, I replayed the years. The first time she'd called me too sensitive. The way she'd started taking business calls outside. The night she told our friends I was lucky she stuck with me. The time she laughed when I said I felt disconnected. The gradual erosion of small kindnesses. When had I started second-guessing my own reactions? When had asking a basic question started feeling like crossing a line? I realized something else too. It wasn't just the Seattle trip. It was how quickly she flipped the script. I hadn't accused her. I hadn't raised my voice. But somehow I ended up defending myself. And sitting there in the dim kitchen, staring at my reflection in the dark window, I felt something I hadn't allowed myself to fully acknowledge before. Not anger, not jealousy, doubt. Not about her career, not about Seattle, about us. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't push that feeling away. I let it sit there with me, heavy, uncomfortable, real. After the Seattle argument, something in me shifted. Not loudly, not dramatically, just enough to make me start paying attention instead of defending myself. I didn't bring the trip up again. Not that week. Not the next. Maya acted as if nothing had happened. She moved through the house with the same sharp efficiency, the same clipped tone, the same restless energy she'd carried for years. But now I was watching. Friday morning came quickly. Her suitcase appeared by the door the night before. Small, efficient. Not the kind she used for long conferences. Just a carry-on. "You'll be back Sunday?" I asked, keeping my voice neutral. "Late," she replied without looking at me. "Don't wait up." That phrase again. Don't wait up. It used to sound playful. Now it sounded rehearsed. The Uber arrived at 5:40 a.m. I stood in the doorway as she rolled her suitcase out. She kissed my cheek quickly, distracted, like she was already somewhere else. "Text me when you land," I said. "Of course." She didn't. By noon, I checked the flight status. It had landed an hour earlier. No text. I told myself she was busy. By 4 p.m., still nothing. I sent a simple message. "Hope you made it okay." 3 dots appeared almost instantly. Busy. Meetings all day. Talk later. Meetings. On a Friday afternoon that required flying across the country for 2 nights. That's when I did something I hadn't done in years. I opened our bank statements. I wasn't looking for proof of anything. I told myself that. I just wanted context. The Seattle flight charge was there, processed 2 days before the notification I saw. But what caught my eye wasn't the flight. It was a hotel, not a corporate chain. A boutique property downtown. 2-night stay. Single king suite. Work-related. I sat back in the chair, staring at the screen. Maybe the company reimbursed boutique hotels. Maybe she booked it last minute. Maybe. My chest felt tight, but I wasn't panicking. I was cataloging. Saturday morning, she posted an Instagram story. A Skyline SH*T. Caption. Seattle grind. No days off. No conference badge. No tagged colleagues. No hotel lobby. Just a skyline. I noticed something else. No wedding ring. I stared at the photo longer than I should have. Sunday night, she came home just after 10. Exhausted, she said. Drained. Productive trip, she added, kicking off her heels. How were the meetings? I asked. Long. With who? She paused. Media Strategy Group, she said vaguely. You wouldn't know them. You wouldn't know them. That phrase settled somewhere dark inside me. Later that night, when she fell asleep, I lay awake staring at the ceiling. And that's when something clicked. Seattle wasn't the first. There had been Denver, Chicago, 2 quick panels in Portland. Each one vague, each one draining, each one followed by a version of this same emotional script. Me asking basic questions, her accusing me of distrust. I got out of bed quietly and went downstairs. Her tablet was on the desk. I stood in front of it for a long time. Then I opened it. No password. We'd never hidden those from each other. I didn't go to messages first. I went to her calendar. The Seattle trip was labeled Client Media Alignment SM. SM. Initials. I scanned further back. Chicago, Strategy Sync SM. Denver, On-Site Review, SM. Always SM. I opened her email, typed SM in the search bar, and there it was. Dozens of threads. Professional tone at first, then softer, then personal, then unmistakable. He was a media manager based in Seattle. They referenced shared dinners, inside jokes, private debriefs in hotel lounges. One message stopped me cold. Can't believe we've kept this going for almost a year. Almost a year. My hands didn't shake. I didn't slam the tablet. I didn't cry. I just sat there in the quiet glow of the screen and felt something hollow open up inside me. Almost a year. The exhaustion, the mockery, the accusations, the therapy comments. All while she was living a parallel relationship. I kept reading. There were confirmations of shared bookings. Photos sent privately. Not explicit, but int asterisk mate. Enough. More than enough. And threaded through it all was something worse than the affair itself. Her narrative about me. He's predictable. He'd never suspect. He's too conflict avoidant. I closed the tablet slowly, went back upstairs, lay down beside her. She stirred slightly, turning toward me in her sleep. And for the first time in our marriage, I felt nothing when I looked at her. No rage, no heartbreak, just clarity. The truth wasn't dramatic. It was methodical. A year of deception. A year of gaslighting. A year of being told I was insecure for noticing patterns. The next morning, I made coffee like usual. She came downstairs in one of my t-shirts. Morning, she said softly. I looked at her carefully. Morning. She watched me for a moment. You okay? She asked. It was almost funny. I'm fine, I said. And for the first time in a long time, that was true. Because something inside me had gone quiet. Not defeated. Resolved. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I didn't ask about SM. I didn't mention Seattle. Instead, I asked about her week. Listened to her describe fabricated meetings. Watched how easily the lies flowed. And I understood something important. This wasn't a mistake. It was a system. And systems require preparation to dismantle. That afternoon, while she was out running errands, I began documenting everything. Screensh asterisk TS. Financial records. Dates. Hotel confirmations. Email headers. I wasn't emotional about it. I was organized. By evening, I had a folder on an encrypted drive labeled simply, Archive. She had spent a year rewriting our reality. I was going to document the real one, not for revenge, for exit. That night, she leaned against me on the couch. You've been quiet, she said. Just thinking, I replied. About what? Work. She nodded, satisfied, and I realized something else in that moment. She truly believed I was weak, too passive to act, too conflict-averse to leave, too invested to walk away. And maybe I had been. But something had changed. The unexpected thing wasn't discovering the affair. It was discovering how calm I felt once I did. Almost a year, and she thought I'd never know. I kissed her forehead before bed. She smiled in the dark, and I began planning my disappearance. Once I knew, everything became quieter. Not around me, inside me. Maya continued her routines with surgical precision. Morning calls, gym sessions, carefully curated social media posts about leadership and resilience. From the outside, nothing had shifted. But I had. I stopped reacting. That was the first change. When she came home late on Wednesday and said, "Traffic was insane," I didn't ask follow-up questions. When she casually mentioned another possible West Coast alignment, I just nodded. When she rolled her eyes at my predictable 9-to-5 rhythm, I smiled faintly instead of defending myself. She mistook my silence for submission. It wasn't. It was observation. The folder on my encrypted drive grew every day. Screensh *TS of emails. Metadata from photos she forgot to scrub. Copies of travel invoices tied to shared funds. A pattern forming with timestamps that told a story she thought I'd never read. But documenting the affair wasn't enough. Because what hurt more than the betrayal was the psychological erosion that surrounded it. The slow rewriting of reality. The way every suspicion I had over the past year had been turned back on me. So I began documenting that too. Dates of arguments. Exact phrases she used. Moments where she reframed my questions as instability. Instances where she mocked me in front of others. It felt clinical, detached. But clarity requires distance. One Thursday evening, we attended a networking dinner for her firm. She introduced me as Andrew. He keeps things stable at home so I can build empires. The table laughed. I smiled politely. She squeezed my arm like it was affection. On the drive home, she said, "You were quiet tonight." "Just listening," I replied. "You should speak more. People might think you're int**midated. Int**midated. I glanced at her in the passenger seat, illuminated by passing streetlights. "Are you?" she added lightly. "No," I said, and that was the truth. The following week, I scheduled consultations. Not with divorce attorneys yet. With specialists. A therapist experienced in coercive control dynamics. A financial advisor who understood asset restructuring. A legal consultant who specialized in high-conflict separations. I didn't mention Maya by name in the first meeting. I described patterns. Gaslighting. Isolation. Financial opacity. Reputation management. The therapist listened quietly. "What you're describing," she said gently, "is sustained psychological pressure." I nodded. Felt strange hearing it named. "You're not crazy," she added. That sentence nearly undid me, because for a year I'd been told I was. I began transferring certain investments into a separate legal structure tied to a trust one had established years earlier. Something Maya had dismissed at the time as overly cautious. Ironically, it became my lifeline. I didn't move recklessly. Every step was legal, documented, strategic. I wasn't hiding money. I was protecting assets that predated the marriage and ensuring clarity in division. The goal wasn't punishment. It was insulation. Meanwhile, Maya's communication with SM intensified. I saw it in the timestamps. Late-night message bursts. Early morning replies before she came downstairs. One thread stood out. "He's so quiet lately." His response. "Maybe he finally checked out." Maya replied, "He wouldn't. He needs me." I stared at that sentence for a long time. He needs me. It wasn't cruelty. It was certainty. She believed I was dependent. Structurally, emotionally, identity-wise, and maybe once I had been. But something about seeing it written stripped the illusion away. I didn't confront her when she booked another Seattle trip. I helped her load the suitcase into the car. "Back Sunday?" I asked. "Late," she said. Same script. After she left, I finalized paperwork. Consulted the attorney formally. Presented the evidence folder. He scanned it carefully. "This is thorough," he said. "I didn't want surprises." "There won't be," he replied. With this documentation and the financial records, you're positioned well. Positioned well. It sounded like business. It was. I filed for divorce while she was mid-flight. No dramatic note. No confrontation. Just a scheduled service notice to be delivered upon her return. When she came home Sunday night, the house was tidy. Lights warm. Dinner untouched on the stove. She walked in, suitcase rolling behind her. "You're awake," she said. "Yeah." There was a knock at the door. She frowned. "Expecting someone?" "No." I opened it. Courier stood there. "Delivery for Maya." She signed absent-mindedly. Closed the door. Opened the envelope. Silence. Then the air shifted. "What is this?" she asked, voice flat. "Divorce papers," I said calmly. She looked up slowly. Confusion first. Then disbelief. Then anger. "You're joking." "I'm not." Her hands trembled slightly. "This is because of Seattle? Because you're insecure?" "No," I said evenly. "It's because I'm informed." Her face drained of color. "You went through my things. I confirmed my reality." She laughed once, sharp and brittle. "You're blowing up our life over paranoia." "Almost a year, Maya." The words landed. Her expression flickered. For the first time, she didn't have a ready counterattack. "You don't understand." "I understand completely." Silence expanded between us. "I'll contest this," she said finally. "You can." She stared at me, waiting for rage, for accusations, for a breakdown. I gave her none. "I'm not taking the house," I added. "You can keep it." Her eyes narrowed. "What?" "I'm not fighting over property." Now confusion deepened. "That doesn't make sense." "It doesn't need to." In her world, everything was leverage. Conflict. Control. Reaction. My calm disoriented her more than shouting ever could have. "You're just giving up?" she asked. "No," I replied. "I'm opting out." She watched me like she was seeing someone unfamiliar. Because she was. I packed a single overnight bag that night. Left the rest. Not out of defeat. Out of preparation. The trust structure was already in place. The accounts separated. The documentation archived. She thought I was broken. Silent. Defeated. But silence isn't weakness. Sometimes it's construction. I walked out of the house before midnight. No slammed doors. No dramatic speech. Just absence. And as I drove away, I realized something surprising. The unexpected moment wasn't discovering the affair. It wasn't serving the papers. It was this. The peace that came from no longer arguing for my own sanity. I wasn't chasing closure. I was reclaiming clarity. Behind me, I knew she was standing in that kitchen, papers in hand, trying to recalibrate a narrative that no longer worked. For a year, she rewrote reality. Now she had to face the original draft. And I was no longer a character in it. The first week after I left, Maya didn't panic. She strategized. That was her instinct. Control the narrative before anyone else could. I didn't block her. I didn't lash out. I simply stopped engaging beyond what was legally necessary. Our communication shifted to email, brief and procedural. She sent the first message the morning after I moved into a short-term rental. "We need to talk like adults." I replied, "Our attorneys can coordinate logistics." No emotion, no accusation, no blame, just structure. By day 3, her tone shifted. "You're making a mistake." By day 5, "You're overreacting." By day 7, "This is about your insecurity again." There it was, the familiar script. Except now it didn't land the same way. Because I wasn't standing inside the house absorbing it. I was reading it on a screen, detached, analytical. The words didn't feel personal anymore. They felt predictable. Meanwhile, something else was unfolding. Maya's company announced an internal review of certain travel expenditures and vendor relationships. It wasn't public yet, but industry rumors travel fast. A colleague I still trusted texted me quietly. "Things are messy over there." I didn't respond beyond, "Hope everyone's okay." I never leaked anything. I never sent evidence to her firm. I didn't need to. Corporate environments eventually audit themselves. Patterns surface. Expense reports get cross-checked. Travel alignments get questioned, especially when reimbursements overlap with personal bookings. The unraveling wasn't dramatic. It was administrative. 2 weeks after I left, she called. I almost didn't answer. Almost. Andrew, she said, voice tight. What did you do? About what? My firm is reviewing my travel logs. That sounds internal. Did you send them something? No. Silence. Then something new. Not anger. Fear. They're questioning Seattle, she said quietly. Of course they were. I leaned back in the chair of my rental apartment. You handled your own travel bookings, Maya. You're enjoying this. No, I said honestly. I'm not. She exhaled sharply. They're asking about conflicts of interest. I said nothing, because I knew what that meant. Shared hotel invoices, non-disclosed relationships, expense reimbursements tied to someone she was involved with. I need you to tell them this wasn't malicious, she said. That almost made me laugh. You want me to defend your ethics? I want you to stop being vindictive. There it was again. Her reflex. Reframe. Accuse. Destabilize. I didn't contact your company, I said calmly. Your choices are yours. You're trying to ruin me. I'm trying to leave. Silence. You could have fought me, she said after a moment. You could have taken half. Instead you disappear and suddenly everything collapses. That line lingered. Suddenly everything collapses. You built your structure, Maya, I replied. I just stepped out from under it. She hung up without another word. Over the next month, news trickled in through mutual connections. She was placed on administrative leave. Then an official investigation. Then a quiet restructuring announcement. Her role was transitioned. Corporate language for removed. She tried calling twice more after that. The first time I let it ring. The second I answered. Her voice sounded different. Smaller. They're pushing me out, she said. I'm sorry to hear that. You're not. I am, I said, and I meant it. I never wanted your career to implode. It wouldn't have if you hadn't. She stopped herself. Hadn't what? Documented reality? Left? Refused to absorb blame? They found inconsistencies, she said instead. I didn't respond. They're saying it violates professional conduct policies. That's between you and them. She was quiet for a long time. Then she said something I didn't expect. I didn't think you had it in you. It wasn't cruel. It was stunned. To do what? I asked. To leave without a fight. I let that sit. Fighting you was the problem, I said finally. She inhaled sharply. Are you seeing someone? She asked suddenly. No. You moved on quickly. I moved out quietly, I corrected. There was a difference. Another silence. Then softer. I thought you needed me. I remembered the message she'd sent him. He needs me. I needed respect, I said. Not management. She didn't argue. For once, she didn't flip the script. I don't know who I am without all this, she admitted. I believed her, because control had been her compass. Status her validation. Narrative her shield. Without those, she was untethered. I hope you figure it out, I said. You're not coming back, she said quietly. It wasn't a question. No. The divorce finalized faster than expected. My prior planning made it clean. I had waived claims to the house. My premarital assets remained protected. There were no drawn-out court battles. Her attorney tried to provoke negotiation drama at one point, but there was nothing to fight over. I had already let go. 3 months after I left, I heard she'd relocated. Seattle, ironically, not for him. That relationship ended quickly once professional risk entered the equation. Apparently, intensity fades when consequences arrive. I didn't follow details. I didn't need to. My life became smaller at first. Simpler. A modest apartment. A different gym. Therapy every Tuesday. But inside that simplicity was something expansive. Peace. The unexpected moment hadn't been serving papers. It hadn't been watching her career falter. It wasn't even reading the messages. It was the day I realized I no longer felt defensive explaining my own emotions in therapy. I could say, she rewrote my reactions, and not second-guess it. She minimized my instincts, and not apologize for noticing. She used confidence as leverage, and not admire it. Months later, she emailed one final time. No accusations. No strategy. Just a short line. I didn't realize you were building an exit while I was building a narrative. I read it twice, then closed the laptop. She was right. The reversal wasn't loud. It was structural. She mistook silence for weakness. When it was preparation, she mistook calm for defeat. When it was clarity, she mistook departure for collapse. When it was construction, I didn't respond to her email, not out of cruelty, but because the conversation had ended the day I stopped arguing for my own reality. And in that ending, something else began. Not revenge, not triumph, just freedom. The strange thing about rebuilding your life isn't the noise. It's the quiet. No slammed doors. No circular arguments at midnight. No walking on eggshells over harmless questions. Just space. For the first few months after the divorce finalized, I kept my world intentionally small. Work, therapy, long runs in the morning, coffee at the same corner shop where no one knew my history. People assume that after something like that, you either fall apart or immediately glow up. I did neither. I stabilized. There's a difference. I didn't chase distraction. I didn't download dating apps. I didn't tell dramatic stories at bars about my cheating ex-wife. I barely spoke about Maya unless it was necessary. But I did start volunteering at a local community center that hosted support groups, mostly for men who were navigating high-conflict separations. I didn't go in as an expert. I went in as someone who had survived quietly. The first time I shared a condensed version of my story, I expected judgment. Instead, I saw recognition. One guy nodded when I described being told I was too sensitive. Another exhaled sharply when I mentioned how questions get reframed as paranoia. A third stared at the floor when I said, I stopped defending myself because I got tired of being told my reality was wrong. It wasn't just about infidelity. It was about erosion. About subtle rewiring of your confidence until you can't tell if your instincts are intuition or insecurity. That's the part people don't see in cheating stories. The slow psychological drift. I started helping some of the guys document their own situations, not for revenge, not to destroy anyone, but to give them something solid when everything felt foggy. Dates, messages, financial inconsistencies, patterns. Clarity is powerful when gaslighting is constant. One night after a session, a guy in his late 20s stopped me in the parking lot. How did you stay so calm? He asked. I thought about that. I didn't, I said honestly. I just didn't show her the chaos. He frowned. Why? Because my reaction was part of the system, I explained. If I exploded, I'd confirm her narrative. If I begged, I'd confirm it too. So I stepped out of the script. He nodded slowly. That's when it hit me. The unexpected thing wasn't when Maya confessed, because she never really did. It wasn't when I found the messages. It wasn't even when her career began collapsing. It was the moment I stopped trying to prove I wasn't the villain in her version of events. That's when everything shifted. A year after I left, I got a letter. Handwritten. No return address. I knew it was hers before I opened it. The handwriting was precise, controlled, like everything she did. It wasn't dramatic. No begging. No declarations of love. Just reflection. She wrote about how she had equated dominance with strength. How she mistook my steadiness for weakness. How silence felt like compliance to her until it wasn't. She admitted she never expected me to leave without chaos. She admitted she underestimated what quiet men are capable of. And then there was one line that stayed with me. The unexpected didn't happen when you served me papers. It happened when you stopped reacting. I folded the letter carefully. Didn't tear it up. Didn't frame it. Just placed it in a drawer. Because forgiveness doesn't require reunion. And growth doesn't require revenge. I didn't respond. Not because I hated her, but because the chapter had closed. These days, my life looks ordinary. A smaller apartment, but it feels bigger. A job I no longer feel embarrassed about. Friends I don't have to filter myself around. Evenings that are quiet in a way that feels peaceful, not tense. I've started dating again, slowly, carefully. Not from fear, but from awareness. I don't interrogate. I don't monitor. But I do trust my instincts now. If something feels off, I don't bury it to avoid conflict. That's the lesson. Not that betrayal exists. Not that people cheat. But that ignoring your internal alarm system is more damaging than any affair. Sometimes I think back to that Tuesday night. The tablet lighting up on the counter. The word Seattle glowing against the dark screen. If I had swallowed that moment like I swallowed so many before it, I might still be there. Apologizing for noticing. Defending myself for asking. Living inside someone else's narrative. Instead, I stepped outside it. I didn't destroy her life. I didn't expose her publicly. I didn't chase revenge. I just stopped participating. And when I did, the system she built without me collapsed under its own weight. People sometimes ask if I ever miss her. I miss who I thought she was. But I don't miss who I became around her. There's a difference. The marriage didn't end when I found proof. It ended when I stopped allowing myself to be rewritten. That was the unexpected moment. Not the confession. Not the confrontation. The clarity. And clarity, once it arrives, doesn't leave. If there's anything I'd tell the version of me sitting in that kitchen a year ago, staring at a notification and doubting himself, it's this: you're not crazy. You're not insecure. You're not weak for wanting transparency. And silence isn't surrender. Sometimes it's strategy. Sometimes it's strength. And sometimes it's the beginning of your freedom. 6 months after the letter, I heard through a mutual friend that Maya had started consulting independently. Smaller clients. Lower profile. No spotlight. Apparently, she kept things quieter now. I didn't feel satisfaction hearing that. Just distance. One evening, after a support group session, a new guy stayed behind. He was shaking, not from anger, but from confusion. She says I'm imagining things, he told me. Maybe I am. I recognized that look. I used to see it in my own reflection. You're not imagining patterns, I said. You're doubting yourself because it's easier than confronting what they mean. Driving home that night, I realized something else. I wasn't helping those men out of resentment. I was helping because I understood the slow fade of confidence, and how powerful it is when someone says, I believe you. Maya had once thought I needed her. Now I understood I had only needed myself back. A year and a half after I walked out, I ran into Maya by accident. Airport terminal. Of all places. She looked different. Not weaker. Just less armored. We held eye contact for a few seconds. No hostility. No tension. Just recognition. Andrew, she said quietly. Maya. There was a pause, the kind that used to be filled with strategy. This time it wasn't. I hope you're well, she said. I am, I answered. And I meant it. We didn't rehash the past. Didn't dissect mistakes. Some endings don't need commentary. As I walked toward my gate, I felt something close to gratitude. Not for what happened, but for what it forced me to become. The unexpected never came from her confession. It came the day I stopped negotiating with my own worth.